The US has announced a $2.2 billion military funding package for European countries deemed at risk of Russian aggression. So obviously Ukraine is included on this list, as well as 18 other countries, some a little closer than others. Now the checkered blue are showing the countries that are already a part of NATO, yet that are still receiving the financial aid. So Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and a lot of others, they got like a wombo combo. Then there's a few countries that aren't part of NATO, but still received some of the money. 66 million to be exact, and Georgia is one of them. There's also Moldova, Bosnia, and Kosovo. Interesting to see the Serbs just completely left out. Assuming Belarus was left off because they're already a pretty big Russian ally. I want to give them money. And I guess they're waiting for Sweden and Finland to join NATO. I wonder where they are in their application process. Funny to see Hungary, who's actually already in NATO, not receive any aid while a lot of their neighbors did. There's definitely some political things happening there. And I guess the US is under the impression that even Russia isn't crazy enough to attack Austria. I feel like if for some reason Russia decided to attack Slovenia, we'd have even bigger problems on our hands. It'd have to be like a full-scale war going on over here. Here's the war action that took place in the last week in Ukraine. There was a huge push forward, a massive I guess encirclement. I'm not sure if there was any sort of encirclements. So these divisions that just kind of broke through went straight on in. You can see all the Russian retreats that was forced to happen. These guys from the north came out of nowhere to like resupply. I wonder what's going on now. This was like a couple days ago. Here's exactly how much has changed over the course of just 1 week. All of this land was taken back, and I'm assuming the pink is showing the new battlegrounds. This is still up for debate. Pushed them all the way back to this river right here. The front hadn't moved for quite a long time, and then now this happened. I'm still in shock that this conflict has been going on for months. Countries without permanent natural rivers. So as you'd expect, some random islands out here in the Pacific, then pretty much the entirety of the Arabian Peninsula. I mean, I knew it was just a giant desert, but not a single one of these countries has one natural river. There's actually a pretty nice mountain range to the west of Saudi Arabia. It actually extends all the way down and takes up a huge part of Yemen too. You're telling me it doesn't like snow in these mountains, and then when the snow melts, it doesn't cause any rivers? It looks like there's some rivers. But this map is talking about permanent natural rivers, so those are just maybe seasonal. Second keyword there is natural. Some of these countries might have a river, but maybe it was like diverted. Now this country is located smack dab in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Understandable that they don't have a whole lot of water sources, and it is also pretty flat, especially in the north. Libya does in fact have something called the Great Man-Made River. You're telling me with a name like this it's not natural? You're basically telling me the entire nation of Libya would be inhospitable if it wasn't for these pipes. And finishing us off, a couple of these smaller city-states in Europe don't have any rivers, neither does Malta. Pretty understandable when a tiny country doesn't have any rivers. I'm actually more shocked at the tiny countries that do. You're telling me the tiny nation of Singapore has access to a river? As well as some of the other small places like Liechtenstein, Andorra, and San Marino. They all somehow have access to a permanent natural water source. I guess San Marino is actually named after the river that goes through them. And somehow Andorra has two. How'd y'all get two? A map showing all of the discovered Breaking Bad labs, if you know what I mean, that have been found in the continent of Europe. They happen to be cooking a certain substance in those labs. Maybe it's blue, maybe it's not, we don't know. So what is going on in Czechia? How do you guys have so many? Now I'm just imagining a lot of Czech citizens walking around looking just like this. And remember, this map is only showing the discovered ones. Who knows how many more are out there? Some of them have even crossed over into their former buddies' borders, Slovakia, also a bit in Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands. And then the big hub in the Balkans is really just Bulgaria. They're finding them all here. Only one in Spain has been caught. Now, technically speaking, couldn't this map just reflect how much Czechia is really on the lookout for this stuff? Maybe every country looks like this. Czechia is just out there finding them. Man, and I thought all this country really did was drink beer. Damn, was I wrong. Where do you need your license plate in each US state? So in most of the deep south, which is all yellow, you only need it in the rear, which is surprising to me coming from California because we need our license plate both in the front and the back of the car. I definitely know this is the same way in Texas. Then these purple states are showing front and rear license plate are generally required, but there are exceptions. I wonder what those exceptions could be. Also, sometimes these states don't necessarily enforce both. It does make me think, what is the point of having them in the front of the car? I'm sure it's handy sometimes, but the vast majority, the back is probably the only one that really matters. Like if a car is speeding down the highway, you're probably not gonna get a good look at the front. Interesting that most US territories require both front and back, except for Puerto Rico. I guess in all of Europe, you have to have both a front and back. I just really wonder how often the front is really needed. Perhaps I'm only pushing this so I can possibly escape from law enforcement easier. The richest billionaire in each state as of September 2022. I like how some countries are just like grayed out. Not even a billionaire wants to live in North Dakota. Or even my birth state of Alabama. I didn't know Elon was living in Texas. I thought he was living in California, but maybe he moved. So our richest billionaire in California California went down to Larry Page, who only has 95 billion versus, you know, 270. Only 95 billion. What a virgin. Jeff Bezos is living in Washington? You'd think he'd go to a more like tax-friendly state, but maybe he has loopholes. Warren Buffett just chilling in Nebraska. Meanwhile, the lowest billionaire on the list lives in South Dakota. You think he just lives here so he can show up on these maps? I would do something like that. It's my retirement plan. Wait, no, this lady from South Carolina might actually be the lowest. There's actually kind of a lot of states that don't have a billionaire. New Hampshire, Vermont, Delaware, DC, West Virginia. Nobody in Alaska, the biggest state by area, and no one? Take note. Someone here become a billionaire and then move to these states, just so you can get your picture on this map. By the way, for anyone wondering, Bill Gates didn't make the list because he also lives in Washington. This is supposedly Winston Churchill's plan for Europe after World War II. If only we could find out how sober he was when he came up with this. So his plan was to put France back together, also keep the lowlands the same, but then make an international zone here in the Rhineland. Then, surprisingly, Germany was actually going to gain some land that they had before WW2. Instead of being chopped up like they were in 1939, they were going to go back to their old imperial German borders, at least the northern half. Wait, he actually planned to have them lose a little bit of this over here. This would go to Poland. Then create a new state known as the Confederation of the Danube. This would be a combination of southern Germany, Austria, Hungary, and even this edge of like Slovakia. And then of course the Soviet Union would just kind of remain the same. Oh, they do get Kaliningrad though for all their efforts. How nice. No unified Ireland? Come on now, Winston. According to OP, Churchill's goals were to divide Germany into a monarchist, Catholic, and Protestant state. Southern Germany should be spared because the militarism came from the Prussia side anyways, and then Hungary and this part of Ukraine should be spared from communism. This would definitely be one really strange nation, we could say that. It's like he was thinking, let's just go ahead and try that whole Austria-Hungary thing again, because that definitely would work a second time. Oh, I almost missed the fact that he totally threw the Baltic states under the bus. Or Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, they were just giving up to the Soviet Union. The distance from a city's downtown to their major airport. This looks really confusing, but basically everything in this first circle is only about 10 kilometers away. It is fairly easy for these cities to get to their major airport. For all the places on the outer edges of these cities, it is not easy to get to their nearest airport, which Tokyo is the worst on the list. If you flew into the airport, if you wanted to take the metro to the downtown area, well, it would take quite a long time. But of course, some cities have two major airports, so this one's a bit easier to get into downtown. Don't fly into NRT, I guess, if you want to get there in Tokyo. The fastest time from an airport into downtown is actually Boston. We actually did that. Via metro or light rail. It only takes 15 minutes. That's crazy. Second worst on this list is Los Angeles. I could have told you pretty easily, if you want to get into downtown LA, do not fly into Ontario Airport. Go into LAX, unless it's like really cheap. Percentage of people watching TV every day. Some of the top nations, Portugal, Italy, Bulgaria, and Romania. So 88% of these populations are watching TV every day. Of course, it's pretty high everywhere though. About 3/4 in both France and Spain. Some of the lowest happen to be in Latvia and Sweden though. Still over 50%, kind of high. I'm now just realizing I do not watch TV. I'm only on the internet every single day, and that doesn't sound much better. Some of these places just have really good television shows, or is there just nothing better to do? I don't know. Fastest growing and shrinking U.S. college fields of study. So in the past 10 years, computer and information sciences is up 144%. That is the fastest growing field. On the opposite end of things, down 35% is history. Oof. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for me? I mean, I never got my degree in history, but I would assume more people would be interested in my channel if they were going into a history field. I mean, I can understand, I guess. I mean, these people studying like computer science are probably gonna make bank afterwards. I'm obviously biased. I feel like people have overall kind of gained more interest in history, or maybe just geography, understanding international things more as of recently. I don't think I'd have a channel if this wasn't happening. Maybe people are interested, they just don't want to go to school for it though, and that's why they're turning to the internet. Oh, maybe it all works out. The other top fields: English, literature, foreign languages, religion, education, health professions, engineering, natural resources, mathematics. Those are all on the increase, which is probably pretty good. Keep in mind, this is the number of bachelor degrees awarded, so maybe there is a lot of people going into history, they just ain't getting their BA. They're like dropping out. Oh, that's me. Hilarious. How much of your yearly salary would you have to spend to afford an iPhone 14? Of course, Luxembourg is lowest on the list. It's a very rich nation. A lot of people are pretty wealthy living there. USA is third. So this is only about 1.5% of your yearly salary to afford the iPhone 14. Are we talking about the big one, the Pro? The one with like all the memory and all the lenses? I'm assuming they're probably doing it like that. And then the top 5 countries on the list: Tunisia, Egypt, Bangladesh, Kenya, and Nigeria. In Nigeria, you'd have to spend at least 69% 40% of your yearly salary on average in order to afford this phone. But there's a pretty big increase from Egypt to Bangladesh. I mean, they're all around the 60 percentile region. I'm trying to be careful with what I say here because I might get an iPhone 14 at some point. But man, like, it don't even look that good. If you're upgrading from like an iPhone 6, okay, it's gonna be nice. But I don't really see that many differences. I kind of just need more storage at this point, but I don't know. It's corn, or the countries that produce the most of it, with literally the greatest background music of any chart I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I can't help but think of this song whenever I eat corn now. What was going on with corn and the USA in the 80s? It was like dropping and then up, and then dropping it up. Is that just average? Is that just like how you farm corn? Gonna have some bad years or something like that? Okay, now it stays pretty consistent. Here comes China though. They're about halfway in 2011, and we're still trying to push forward. China's really catching up. In third place, Brazil's in a nice spot. Then Argentina, Ukraine, India, and Mexico. China might catch us one day in corn production. I love corn. It's just great. There's like so many things that use corn because of the high fructose corn syrup. Everyone from Iowa right now is just freaking out. It's like their favorite pastime, corn. The Queen's Corgis. I know that she's had a lot, but this is so much. So I guess she received her first corgi on her 18th birthday. That is Susan. Susan had 2 offsprings. I don't know if like none of Sugar's offsprings made it or did she give them away, but she went down the honey route. Then there was Bee, Heather, Foxy, Tiny. So this is not all at the same time. This is over the course of like, what, 70 years? Did someone just get bored and not give this one a proper name? Might as well just name this poor dog Tuesday. Now some of the corgis in orange were crossbred with the dash, I don't know how to pronounce these ones. These things, which you can see how similar they are already to corgis. They can't really be that far away from each other. Wait, what do these things look like when they're crossbred? Oh, okay, they look pretty adorable. More normal. So she was playing around with these mixes, but didn't let them like breed. Then she started 2 different trees. I'm really hoping that there were like other dogs brought in. Like, please tell me you weren't trying to keep the royal family's blood pure, right? You don't know how those monarchs be doing it sometimes. So Shadow's tree and Smokey's tree kind of cuts off. Wait a second, Shadow's eventually stopped with these 4. Look at how many, she had at least like 8 at one point, right? Windsor Quiz, unique name there too. Did Emma have all these, or did they each, I don't really know. But Willow here was the Queen's last corgi that descended from Susan, unfortunately died in 2018. I kind of want to do this actually. Create your own like royal family of dogs in a way. Let them kill each other for like the heir to the throne. Okay, maybe not. You can tell when she had her partying phase, her high fantasy phase, her midlife crisis, and her gardening phase. Someone replied with this post: in the dog world, humans are elves that routinely live to be 500 plus years old. They live so long, but the good ones still bond with us for our entire lives. Like, imagine being Willow and your owner knows your great grandmother. How? He can tell you about your entire family lineage. England should just put one of these dogs on the throne. And big thanks to my wife hates this part.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
Drew's Argentinian grandpa. California and Nevada bring back Poland ball. Mexican and $20 is a lot. Drew. Danny, Evan, Pryce, Gamers, LuxembourgLover, Matt, Philipp RF, Terraformed Mars, and why am I doing this?